What's up and welcome to my humble abode. We are gathered here today to talk about how much I love folklore. Listen, I wrote you a really pretty script with big words like masterful demonstration of lyrical dexterity, but I would rather sit here and just gush about how much I really love this album. People who know me today know that I am a very big Swiftie. So much so that you might think that like Taylor Swift has always been my whole vibe and I've been listening to her since I was a child, and like in some way I was. Like her music was always just kind of around me, but I wasn't like a huge Taylor Swift fan until Folklore. And today I just kind of wanted to make a video about why this album is so cool and what I think sets it apart and differentiates it from the rest of her discography for people like me that really love the quieter side of music. Like when people ask what kind of music I listen to, I always say anything with good lyrics. And in my opinion, Folklore did something incredibly magical, which is it is a very stripped down version of the soul of her music, which can get a little bit hidden or clouded over in some of the other work that we're used to listening to, things like 1989, Reputation, even things as early as Red or Fearless. Because you still do have that element of trying to be the best. I'm trying to be what differentiates me from the other people in my genre, from the other people in the music marketplace. In a way, Folklore doesn't really try all that hard, it just simply exists. And in this quiet existence, it invites a new kind of fan, people like me who want that quietness from her music. So let's just get into it. What exactly makes Folklore just like chef's kiss amazing? In a lot of ways, Folklore feels like Taylor Swift's most mature work, and I hesitate to say that because since Tortured Poets and since Midnights came out, those two are extremely mature work. So I'll say just at the time that it came out, it really made her maturity as a musician clear to me when Folklore happened. Oh, and yes, by the way, if you're new to my channel, hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Jen Carmiel. I'm a watercolor artist and illustrator, and I'm also a songwriter, all around creative gal, and I create videos to help you stay inspired, either through videos like this where I do deep dives into cute, cool things that I find really interesting in life, or through videos like where I try to give you a little bit of empowerment and inspiration on, you know, how to live more creatively. I do have original paintings, prints, and greeting cards available through the link in the description for my online shop, including cute little kitty greeting card sets just like this one. Each card has a different kitty cat, so if you have a cat lover in your life, I highly recommend. And everything is painted, printed, shipped right here in my home studio. So let's set some ground rules real fast because I am terrified of the interwebs. So this video, in my humble opinion, if I were to say so myself, is a love letter to Taylor Swift and the album of Folklore. That said, I'm still going to be making some somewhat critical observations of her work throughout time in a way that I think some people might be tempted to perceive it as criticism, but rest assured, for me, it is not about being critical or hateful or anything like that. For me, making these kinds of neutral observations about artwork, which is what I consider music, is actually one of the truest ways to engage with it as an audience. Sometimes I feel like the internet is very tempted to take anything that isn't absolute worship to be like hate or something. So I just want you guys to know any sort of like neutral observations that happen here, like they come with love and they come with utmost respect for the work as well. And there might be something I say that you disagree with, and that's a-okay, my friend. What kind of society would we be if we agreed on everything? So let's take a journey back in time to when Folklore was first written and what the public at the time would have perceived to be Taylor Swift's reputation in a way as a musician. Anytime I say Taylor Swift, I'm saying Taylor Swift the brand, not the person. So when we think about Taylor Swift's reputation, at the time that Folklore was released, she was very much a pop star, right? She had singles that commanded attention, that were very catchy and had all these hooks, and these tunes that she created were crafted with scientific precision to get stuck in your head, to say something clever, and to have infinite replayability. And she even says this in interviews, that she does consider what she does a craft, and that she intentionally tries to say things that are very clever, something that you haven't heard it put that way before. I think that this is what makes her work so set apart from what anyone else really does. It's because of how much attention she pays to her lyrics, because for most people in the music industry, they might have interesting lyrics like that exist, but it will probably not be the forefront of what's in their mind when they're trying to create a good song. They're probably thinking about the instrumentation. They're probably thinking about catchiness, but are they thinking about like, what's a way that I can interpret the world in a way that no one has thought to put this way? That is something that Taylor Swift has always really like dedicated herself to, and it's because of this attention and this precision with the interpretation of the world that I really think that really connects with people. But it's not only this newness of interpretation, but it's also just newness in general. Taylor Swift has also said in interviews that she's constantly pushing for freshness, for newness, which is in part inspired by the fear of being replaced. She said she could sense that her record label at any point in time was constantly looking like they were kind of like side-eyeing around the world, like, where's the next best thing? And in turn, Taylor Swift said, if I reinvent myself, then they don't have to always be looking for the next best thing out there. They've got it right here. Job security, one might say. And we first see this thought of needing to reinvent herself played out in the album Red with songs like Nothing New and The Lucky One. And honestly, like, this concept plays out a lot throughout her work in general, like, and as a whole, I feel like I go down a rabbit hole if I really wanted to. So if you're interested in a video dedicated to the concept of the artist's fear of being replaced, because it's such a big concept, right? Just comment below mirror ball video, because mirror ball girlies will understand. And I'll work on that one next. So Taylor Swift has always had this ever-changingness happen with her music. And because of all this ever-changingness right on top of the music is sort of how I interpret it, she still has the soul that is carried the same throughout her entire discography herself. This is what makes it Taylor Swift sounding. This is what this diaristic way of writing is, right? And this soul has been carried throughout her albums, slowly getting like, I guess, putting new masks on, new costumes on per album to stay out of fear relevant, right? What's so interesting to me is that it's very effective in the best way. Like, I find that some of her most impactful work that is like unlike anything else. The first thing that comes to mind is Blank Space or Ready for It or some of her other work on Reputation, right? It's this very new sounding music that is still her at its core, that is unlike anything else you've ever heard, right? At least that I've heard. And some of it might not be like my preference to listen to, the way that it sounds, and we're going to be getting into that a little bit later, but the soul of the work is still somehow there, that is very magnetic. To the average listener, this soul, the rich inner world that Taylor Swift is able to sort of craft, right? It's hidden underneath all of this flashy beat and melody. I remember growing up, for my personal taste, I really loved songs of hers which spotlighted this soul, her storytelling in a way. And I tended to skip over songs that seemed to me to be performatively catchy, like someone literally sat down in a chair and said, how can we make this catchier, and then did it. You know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, it was just like my particular taste, you know? Songs that had that really unique soul and spotlight on storytelling, for me, were those songs like Mine on Speak Now, Mean, and a lot of Red, honestly. And if we contrast these songs like Mine with something like Bad Blood, 22, Ready for It, you can definitely sense that the, I guess, sort of like confessional aspect of the song, like it could be one girl up on stage with a microphone confessing her feelings to you. And instead it's like the girl with the microphone confessing her feelings to you is like standing at the back of the stage while a bunch of like showgirls are right like in front of her making it look cool and interesting. You know what I mean? It's all this like showing off in this performance, which, you know, is a very necessary part of pop music. So I'm not criticizing that at all. It's just an observation to make. As an average listener, I just kind of noticed these two different styles, the attempting to perform and then the really strong confessional music. I could sort of notice the two styles. And then there was the music in the middle, things like Clean, which also made the attempt for fresh and newness sonically in music, with all of the really interesting synths that happen, but they still do not lose the really interesting imagery and very masterful storytelling, songwriting. And let's talk about Clean for a minute because, well, this isn't even a 1989 video. What am I doing? I don't care. It's my video and we're talking about Clean. So what I love the most about Clean though, I really love how it kind of like twists and turns your perspective on what you imagine grief might look like. Because the lyrics themselves, they depict something that should be scary or wrong or bad. But then in the chorus, it comes to this revelation that it is not scary, wrong, or bad. It is simply clean. We have this imagery about the drought. The drought was the very worst, when the flowers that we'd grown together died of thirst. And then you segue into hung my head as I lost the war. The sky turned black like a perfect storm. Rain came pouring down when I was drowning, and that's when I could finally breathe. And I really love how this imagery turns from black, scary, dark rain clouds into that's when I could finally breathe. It's just a really masterful way to depict grief and loss in a way that a lot of people will understand it. I think at the time that I had heard this song, I had not yet experienced something like that would warrant me relating to this song, because, you know, I was probably like, what, 15, 16 when I first like really listened to this song. And so it took another couple years, like 19-ish, for me to really like have a relatable experience to something like this song. But I could still feel that feeling of loss and that feeling of I could finally breathe kind of moment. And I think that's what really powerful music has the potential to do. It is able to be a bridge between experience and not having experienced that yet, so that if for some reason you are someone who has experienced loss or grief and you're talking to someone who has not experienced that, you can show them a song and you can be like, oh, this is how it feels to me. And at least that person is just a tad bit more inclined to better understand you now. That's the power of amazing artwork like this. And it is all of this like interesting lyricism that really comes into play in Folklore. This is the first time that I had really been given the opportunity to listen to her music without all of the bells and whistles, without all the flashy showmanship, all the attempts to sound brand new. Instead, it was just simply her, the soul of her music stripped down to its most basic components, where the soul of the music and where the storytelling was front and center and nothing else was clouding its judgment anymore. Is clouding its judgment the right word? I think you know what I mean regardless. It's like overshadowing it. That's the right word. Folklore just does not show off, and I love that about the album. There's nothing in the production that specifically commands your attention, and you might even argue that there are no hooks throughout the album, which is such an interesting concept to say about one of the biggest pop stars in the world. Like if you're in the grocery store and 1989 comes on, there might be like a sound or a saying, a phrase that can get stuck in your head kind of repeatedly, or something that's kind of cool. Maybe now we've got Bad Blood, like the Bad Blood alliteration, like that's kind of catchy, that's a hook, you know? But if you come back to something in Folklore, there's nothing really there that grabs at your attention that says, look at me, and shines a very bright light at you. And I really think that the fact that her music is still so captivating, is still so magnetic and mesmerizing, is really a testament to her skill as a songwriter. You can make the argument that Folklore is complexly arranged, has incredibly beautiful composition, but it does still lack that driving beats of 1989, loudness to softness, and you really hear this loudness to softness played out in Elizabeth Taylor on Showgirl, I think. It's missing all of, and I hesitate to say missing, because missing implies that like you want it there, and in my opinion, I think it's almost stronger for having it not there, this showing offness, if you know what I mean. Instead, Folklore sounds like an invitation to get cozy, a little bit intimate. And it's by removing all of the glitter and lights that Folklore is able to shine the largest light, in my opinion, on what makes Taylor Swift's music so special. And it's this beginning, middle to end that she writes with her music. And she even marketed Folklore as like being in a little forest, as peak storytelling, as fiction, as she says. And it was really a divergence from her previous need to be completely new, never done before. Instead, she visits acoustic instruments, sparse vocals, and lets the music itself do the speaking. So let's visit a few songs in Folklore that, in my opinion, are just like my absolute favorite ever, starting with one that I feel like does not get enough love, and it's 7. So 7 starts out with the lyrics. Please picture me in the trees. I've hit my peak at 7 feet. Ah, listen, I have chills just saying it. What can I say? I really love how this song is just a very beautiful depiction of what it feels like to grow up. this kind of like childlike innocence proposed in the second verse, where you are visiting with a friend that might not be in the best situation, and so you don't really have the adult words to really describe the situation, and instead you describe it as being a house that's haunted. She writes, "I've been meaning to tell you, I think your house is haunted. Your dad is always mad, and that must be why. And I think you should come live with me, and we can be pirates. Then you won't have to cry or hide in the closet, and just like a folk song, our love will be passed on." That is the line that really made me really fall in love with this song and this album in general. I just really love the cadence of her lyrics, how it's sort of like the music melds itself around the lyrics she wants to say. She doesn't let herself get cut off. If she has more to say, she will say it. The actual lyrics of the song forge a way forward, even if the phrase feels like it wants to be cut off. If she has more to say, she will say it. And instead the music will kind of like bend around that. She won't let herself get cut off early. And I think that's what creates such a distinct and interesting sound for this album. This kind of like windingness, walking so long around the forest, like getting lost as you listen. I think that's what creates a lot of the atmosphere in this music. Another part that I love in 7 is the part where she says, "Before I learned civility, I used to scream ferociously anytime I wanted." And I love that. And then she says, "I," like she like does the screaming, like it's just so, it is her mimicking or demonstrating this concept of screaming ferociously. And you can even hear in the background of other songs that she's written, this like, this kind of like winding up of this like screamy pitch thing. And it's really, really beautiful. And you can only catch it in the background of certain songs. I believe it's in the background of The Fate of Ophelia. It's also in the background of August, I believe, but in the re-recorded, like in the Long Pond studio sessions. But this is the kind of experimentation that can really only happen when you're like starting to get really in tune with like your inner like, I don't want to say beast, but your inner like crazy artist person who's not caring so much about topping the charts and who doesn't want to be the most noticed person in the room, who doesn't want to be the catchiest, but someone who makes a sound one day and they're like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. I like how that sounds," and then they put it in. That's like true artistry. That's what I really love and respect about like this whole process with making folklore. I think that in making folklore, she really like unlocked a new part. I don't want to say unlocked a new part, but she probably became very comfortable with presenting herself not as the huge pop star, but as the writer. She's always been a writer. Everyone has always known that, of course. But I think that this is the first time whenever she was like, I don't have to show off. I think people will just accept me for me, you know? And that is such like a heartwarming and nice thing to think too, with a lot of the concepts written about on folklore, with songs like This Is Me Trying, Mirror Ball. All of these songs about the concept of feeling like you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough kind of thing. And of course, this is just speculation. We will never know what goes on in Taylor Swift's brain, of course. But I'm saying that from a songwriter's perspective and from an artist's perspective, I can imagine this being the case for some artists out there that might write similar music or that might struggle with, I guess, being differentiated amongst other artwork that people like, because artwork is a marketplace. Like it's essentially being able to capture people's attention and have people be interested in your interpretation of the world. Because I believe that artists, our whole job is interpreting the world, is translating the world for people. And so naturally artists can face a lot of inner turmoil around being overlooked because you have ideas, you want them to be heard. You know what I mean? But anyway, I think I'm getting a little bit off topic. I just think that there's this quiet power that happens in folklore that is very powerful, extremely powerful, but that doesn't get enough credit because it's not loud. It doesn't show off, but it's noticed by people like me. Taylor Swift is used to taking risks in her music when it comes to how she can be better noticed in a very quick, catchy, flashy way. But in this album, she takes a lot of risks lyrically and compositionally. And I really, like, as an artist myself, as a songwriter, I really do appreciate and love these little moments that you have to really be attuned to really notice them. And you have to be sitting down intentionally to hear them. And it's always music like that that I connect with the most. The music that makes you feel like this was written solely and only for me. And isn't that such an interesting concept that Taylor Swift is the biggest songwriter, the biggest pop star ever, and she writes music that almost every single person on this earth can listen to and say, I feel like this was written only uniquely for me. That is such an interesting concept as it exists, let alone to actually achieve that. And I really do think it's with getting so deeply in tune and in touch with your own intentions as an artist, it's the specificity of the confession that really makes it land and that really drives it home that much. Because if you're ever trying to just like say what you think someone else has been through, like try to guess their experience, you're never gonna land right on. But if you get so deeply specific, dangerously specific, to the point where you're like, I don't even know if I can admit this to anybody, kind of specific, that's where you can really get into life-changing territory when it comes to transformative artwork with music like this. So I also wanted to look at Mad Woman, especially in contrast to The Man on Lover. So isn't this such an interesting comparison we have here? She's writing about the same exact subject, essentially. I'm not going to say same exact, I'm going to say very similar subject with Mad Woman as The Man. Both songs are about the inherent sexism in the world, society, and in the industry, about how women just can't get away with the same stuff that men do, and about the double standards, like the different expectations you can have just by being a woman in this world. The chorus of Mad Woman goes, "There's nothing like a mad woman. What a shame she went mad. No one likes a mad woman. You made her like that." And the first time I heard this song, I can admit I wasn't like too intrigued, mostly because of how it doesn't show off, how there's nothing to really grab onto sonically other than the lyrics themselves, you know? Like they have that really interesting piano in the background, ba-da-da-da-dum, bum, ba-da-dum. They have like that interesting thing in the background going. But I'm very used to hearing from Taylor Swift all of this interesting vocals, this new and freshness with how she arranges melodies. That's very, like, extremely catchy, right? But there's nothing catchy about Mad Woman. And so whenever you listen to it, you really have to really let yourself tune in and sit down intentionally to understand this song, to really start to see a lot of its beauty. In a way, Folklore is also very deeply enjoyed as poetry, that if you were to just read this in a book, you'd be very interested in it. Whereas if you were to read something like Bad Blood in a book, like, I don't know, just me, I would be like, what am I reading? Like, I don't feel like it. Because a lot of the enjoyment from songs like Bad Blood come from the interesting music, the interesting beats, the driving force of that song. But the driving force in all of Folklore is the lyrics, is how you talk about these things that matter so deeply to you. And if we contrast Mad Woman with The Man, you can hear it in the driving beat beneath the lyrics that she's sort of like fitting these syllables in like a puzzle to fit the sound that's already been created. And then you also have the hook there, I'd be the man, you know, like you have that attempt to grab attention and this is the thing that you're gonna put into TikTok kind of thing. You don't really have a moment like that in Mad Woman. And I really love how in Mad Woman you get a lot more winding tangents than you are able to get in a song like The Man, because of the constraints of trying to work within the beat, within this pop song, right? And instead, Mad Woman offers a lot more space. Like even just looking at the lyrics on the page side by side, like there's no comparison. Like Mad Woman is just, it's so much wordier in the best way. I love it. And of course, all of this comes down to preference, right? It depends on like what you enjoy to listen to, right? I really enjoy listening to lyrics that make me like feel something, you know? And I tend to prefer quieter music, subtler music to like more poppy sounds. And a lot of that just has to do with me as a person. I tend to get very overstimulated by sounds and lights, and so that translates into my enjoyment of music. So I tend to prefer like subtler musics because of that. But regardless, there's no question for me about how you are just allowed to be a greater poet in an album like Folklore than you are allowed in an album like Lover. But I hesitate to say that too, because there's a lot of beautiful lyrical moments in all of her albums, and that's what I was going to get to at the conclusion. So by the time that I had listened to Folklore and I had it on repeat over and over and over again, that is when I was really like starting to become a Taylor Swift fan, because prior I had listened to like a lot of indie music and I had listened to like a couple singles by Taylor Swift, but I hadn't really been like a super big Swiftie, so to say, until Folklore. And then when Folklore came out, I remember I listened to it repeatedly, and then I naturally wanted more. So then I went through the rest of her music then. And that's when I started to notice underneath all of this like poppiness, all of this performative catchiness, like this showgirlness, if you will, I noticed that soul was still there under all the rest of her music. And that's where, like, even if you look at something like The Man or Bad Blood, I can still see that initial process of diarrheistic, if that's even a word, writing. And that's what I really, really love to see in the artwork that I consume. Because the reason I consume artwork is because it allows me to interpret the world in a newer, better, fresher way. I don't want to say better way, but it allows me to look at the world through this new, unique perspective, through a new lens, the lens that the artist provides us. And I really care about my mental diet, as they call it, when it comes to like, what lens am I looking through? Is this the lens that I care about looking through, or is it I just want to go party and it's just not me, what can I say? But a lens of someone who's like a romantic at heart, a lens of someone who always wants to see the best in people, a lens of someone who's just trying their best to figure it out. That is all something that I am uniquely interested in. And that is what really drew me to Folklore whenever it first came out. I think my overall favorite song, and it's so hard to choose one, on Folklore, let's see, if I were going to rank the songs on Folklore, maybe I should make a video. If you want to see a video where I rank all the songs on Folklore, comment below and I'll make it. But I'm gonna say This Is Me Trying is probably my favorite song on Folklore. I just really relate to that feeling of feeling like you're ahead of the curve. As a kid or when you were in school, you were like always on top of it and everything. But then as you grow older, it just feels like you're growing as if you're behind. I so relate to that feeling. And so This Is Me Trying was very much a song that said, this one's for you, girly. Like the lyrics, they told me all of my cages were mental. So I got wasted like all my potential, like girl after my own heart. It's hard to be at a party when I feel like an open wound. It's hard to be anywhere these days when all I want is you. You're a flashback and a film reel on that one screen in my town. Like, and this is another example of how I feel like her lyrics kind of force the music into place. It's like, this is what I want to say, and the music just kind of is the backing track for her unique voice. And I just love hearing music like this. But that's what I think about Folklore. What do you think about Folklore or any other Taylor Swift music in general? I would love to chat and be friends in the comments. I will say, if anybody's mean, I will send Tazo after you, and be very wary. He's ferocious. So if you enjoy these videos, please do let me know. Leave a little comment, a like, a subscribe or so that I know to continue making them. I think if I were to make another Taylor Swift video, I would want to talk about Midnights, because other than Folklore, that is my all-time favorite album. Either that or Tortured Poets. But Tortured Poets, we'd be here all day because that thing is extensive in the best way. Don't forget to get your cute little kitty greeting card. So I paint all of these by hand, then I print them out, and you get cute little envelopes as well. Of course, you don't have to get cute greeting cards, but if you want to be a cool cat, you could. These are a really cute gift for anyone who loves cats, because, like, what can I say? The kitty lover in me made them, so. But yeah, they're just my favorite thing. This one is a little kitty on a keyboard. I love him. He's just so adorable. And this is my all-time favorite. This is Tazo standing next to a book by a window. We love it. We have a black kitty as well. And the calico kitty, we love them. And of course the classic coffee kitty. They're blank inside, and then they come with self-sealing envelopes. So we gotta get back into letter writing. What can I say? Who wants to receive stuff in the mail that's cute and fun and not just a bill or a spam? Like, be the reason someone loves to open up their mailbox. As always, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really do consider it a gift, and for that, this humble artist says thank you. Oh man. All to say, we are just out here. I really do love talking about the T-Swizzles, or just music in general. Gracie Abrams is another huge favorite of mine. If you haven't already been able to tell with me talking about lyrics all day every day, and like the cute slowness, subtlety of Folklore, like, yeah, Gracie Abrams is like my go-to, like, favorite albums, like, just gotta say. So Anyway, excited to hear from you in the comments. TTYL. Ugh. Deeply specific and dangerous. Tazo has some input. That contrast, the sharpness and loudness, the contrast, the sharpness between the loud, I'm using too many words, I don't know what I'm saying.